All right. Any questions on the databases, queries? All right. No questions. So let's do one more activity and then we'll jump on to a little bit different, some more advanced concept. This is going to be activity number 4. Where's my this one? Activity number 4. In this activity, you will be creating, I think it's more than one table. No, it looks like just one data. It should be quick. So just create one table. Make sure you use the primary key, the concept that we learned. That's what this is all about. Primary key is not null. Make sure the table is working. Insert some rows. Make sure you have a database created. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to keep this over here. This is where I declared my primary key so you guys kind of see the syntax. Okay, one more thing when you're trying to insert varchar, double ticks or double quotes or single, both of them work. Pick one, be consistent, but both of them will work over here. Double quotes or single quotes.
The primary key goes after the create table?
It should be inside the create table at the end. Yeah, just like your kind of column thing, just at the end of your create table query.
After the syntax?
Basically, think of it as your last column. So once you're done with your column, just put a comma and then just write on the screen. Yes.
Okay. Is that SQL ID? Is that just for reference? Is it like actually related to what the primary key is? Is it just so you have a visual?
No. This statement is designating this column as the primary key. So this column has to exist. And where does it exist? It has to exist over here. Right? So this statement is just saying, oh, I have a column called people ID. Make this a primary key. If this column does not exist, it's going to be an error. Yeah. So you need to have that column. Yes. Yes.
What's considered a better practice? Like after I put it like in line, like ID integer primary key, or put it after? There I see 2 different examples on physics school.
Okay. So it might be the version number of SQL that they have the example. The better case is just put it at the end like this. It's kind of more visual. You can see what's going on. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, every product, I mean, they use SQL, for example, Microsoft SQL Server. You might find some differences in the SQL that they write, very minute ones. But, since we are on MySQL, this is the syntax for MySQL. Yes?
And the primary key can be any data type?
Can be any data type, yes. But if you put it as a string, you cannot put auto increment. So then you have to ensure that nobody enters the same name. Yeah. For example, your name, this can be a primary key, yes. But then you cannot have 2 same names in your database.
Right, so like a username.
Username, that's a good primary key, or email address, because that's always unique. Yeah. You can have a string primary key as well. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. It just has to be unique. Okay. Well, generally, you will see that people in the databases, this is how they do it. Like they have an integer primary key, because it's auto incremented, kind of takes the effort out of it, and it has a less chance it's ever going to clash. So generally, you will see a primary key in this fashion.
So it'd be useful to know how to not allow. So it did have a username, but the primary key, you'd still want to make it so you couldn't, 2 people couldn't have the same.
Yes. So once you designate, if you put name over here, 2 people cannot have. So what's going to happen is when you try to insert, it's going to give you an error saying you cannot insert because it already exists. Then you're going to take that error when we get to Node.js. You will take that error and show it on your website saying, oh, it already exists. Remember, you see when you're trying to type a username, error shows up saying it already exists. This means on your database they are checking to make sure there's nobody else. Yeah, we will eventually, we are doing this in parts with a Node.js database, then we are going to connect both of them, and then you're going to connect to your front end. So your front end is you are going to somehow notify your front end that somebody's trying to insert a key that already exists, throw back an error, tell the user you cannot do that. No. But this will enforce that on the database level, that it never happens. Yes.
I don't know why you ever do this, but is there a way to make it so you have a unique value other than the primary key? Like for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
why you have a people ID and you want the username to be
Yeah. No, it's possible. When your database, when your table is, this is kind of simpler table. When you have a more complex table, um, you will have multiple keys, and the combination of those keys is going to be unique. Okay, so you might have people ID, something else, people ID, and name, and you can designate both of them as primary key. What basically you are saying is the combination of these two columns is going to be unique. Each column on its own is never going to be unique. Let's suppose that's how your case is. But you still have to identify what is going to be unique. So you can have multiple columns saying that the combination of this column and this column is going to be unique. So you can have that, yes. It's called a unique key constraint.
But I guess my question is, and I don't know why you have to do this, but have an additional field that is also like an additional primary, like not just for some reason.
Yeah.
For some reason you have a unique primary key.
Uh-huh. Because you have to, yes. Yes.
I don't know why.
Yeah, you can do it. It's called, it won't be a primary key in that case. It's called unique key. So let's see how do we do it in MySQL. Yes, it's not working. So I posted the link. Let me know if that works, Ethan. Unique key. Right, so it's literally called unique key. So you can use this syntax and put the column name that you want it to be unique. Does that answer what you're asking? Yeah. So you can do it. Yeah. And it's not uncommon, to be honest. And yeah, it depends on, this is a simple table, but once you have like real production data and a bigger table, it happens. Okay. Yes. Somebody what?
So like
Oh, so you're saying they cross the limit of the allowed one? Yes.
So you're approaching the limit, and then somebody for some reason another that you but that's why so everything past the halfway spot has to also resolve. And so that's where
It's going to throw an error. So you will have to either upgrade that field from integer to big int so that you can have more space, or choose a different primary key. Yeah, yeah, it won't let you do it. So we are working on this exercise. This is exercise number 4. Again, very similar to the ones that we have already practiced.
Did you have a question? Okay. It always does that, like it always. It's not even. This will always. It's not a mistake when you wrote value in your table. All those specialty places now, you know, you get your gourmet ice cream sandwich.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, right. So where did you say? Right. So if you wanted to set to, let's say you wanted to set it as default, oh, because you included it here. Well, I can check it out. I'm not. Go back up and look at your. Yeah, what did you call your second? No, no, never mind. You did.
What is it?
It's not like
Yeah.
So, like, why don't we put three of them and give them also the
I'm
fourth
not
one?
sure.
So I don't have the fourth one.
Yeah.
This is the second auto.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
They just identifying that the next one is empty, like this is where the data starts.
Is like language is not.
So do you add language after you have created the table? You have to go to the- If you add anything new,
That's probably what this is. Column count
so if you modify, you created a table,
Oh, yeah, like the new page.
and then if you modify those structures again, you have to drop this over the
Oh.
You can, it doesn't work like that. You
Did
have to
you?
drop it.
Yeah. I went in and out.
Yeah, so you have to drop the table.
Got it.
Or there's a command called alter, but that's
More
more
advanced.
advanced. But basically you have to recreate it. You figured it out? Yeah, that's that's. Oh, okay.
Is this like look up how to add a column to the table?
Oh yeah, that's the
If you're adding a column, it will already.
yes. Yeah, that's how you do it. That's what I was. So you can add and remove the hip column. There are a few more. You have quite a few options.
Okay.
Update the column. This is adding. What if you already has the column? You already have a column. You want to update it. Add, modify.
And so that's just normal then, anytime you miss something, then you go back.
Yeah.
And drop it.
Well, drop it or Chris can send you the link or there's a command called alter. Basically, what you have to do is you have to rerun somehow recreate it. So either drop it, create it, or alter it. Then yeah, it won't work until you kind of execute it again.
So can you use it to make a change to an existing column then?
Alter table, yes.
So you just add it and it just overrides the existing one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to go ahead and order. All right. Any questions on this activity? We'll spend maybe like 5 more minutes on this one, unless somebody has questions on this one. It's kind of similar to the previous ones. Yes.
So like in my case, because I didn't have that thing altered, I would have done that. It would put in master true.
The numbers.
That would think that. That would just add like comma using.
All right. Any questions on the previous activity? Everybody good? Yes. You have a question, Eric? Uh-huh. So there are two ways you can do it. Let's suppose you have created a table and you want to modify that table. You will have to drop that table, update the new query, and then recreate that table. Okay. The second way is there's a command called alter. It's called alter table. Okay. This command you don't have to drop the table. You can use this keyword alter, and let's look at the. Actually, Chris found it. Chris, can you forward that link? And we can just jump over there. Alter table. Okay, never mind. This one? Okay. So the other way is you can use alter table command. If you're trying to add a column, it's going to be alter table programming, whatever the name is, and then add column name and the data type. Okay, so for example, if you had a customers table, you're going to say this table should already exist if you want to use this alter table command, okay? Because you're altering a table that already exists. So you're going to say alter table, your table name. If you're trying to add a column, the name of the column, and then the data type, okay? If you are trying to remove a column, it becomes drop column, okay? Let's suppose you have 5 columns, you don't want one of those columns, you're going to go ahead and say drop column and the name of the column, okay? So add, drop. If you want to modify the column that already exists, let's suppose you have a Boolean column that didn't have default, right? You want to alter that. So the command would be alter column, column name, and whatever you're trying to do. Why can't do the what? As a string. There's a data type called text, but there's no data type called string. Yeah, I guess they wanted to do their own thing. Okay, all right. So far, how do you guys like SQL? Okay, understanding, maybe. Good. Like it? Well, we can have that. So I'm going to make sure that you guys hit SQL. All right. All right, you guys ready? All right. So I would recommend don't follow along. I'm going to leave some time towards the end, and you're going to redo the whole example, the same one that I do. For now, just concentrate and see how we are going to solve a certain problem. So far, we have looked at only one table, right? We've been working on one table, but of course, in reality, you will have more than one tables. Could be 2, 3, 10, 15. But there's more than one table always, right? I highly doubt you will be, even in your projects, you're going to have more than one tables. Okay? So the next part is how do we create relationships between those tables? If you have tables in your database, which is this, the high level thing, all the tables in your database most of the time are going to be related to one another. Okay, it's a rare case that you're going to have a table that is like standalone table that doesn't have any relationship with any other table in your database. Okay, so we are always going to have some kind of relationship between tables. Okay, and I'm talking about the table that exists in your database. For example, my animals DB has this table. It has no relationship between this database table. Okay, but everything within this, if they're all of these, they might have some kind of relationships. Okay, so what we are going to look at is I'm going to create a new database. Let me go ahead and create a new query. Okay, and then we are going to see how do we create relationships between two tables. So in this case, I'm going to create a books database. Okay, and my books database is going to have two tables, books and authors. All right, so first kind of take 2 minutes, see if you can see the relationship between this table and books table. Okay. Meanwhile, let me go ahead and create a database called booksdb. Create database booksdb. Okay, and I'm going to select this. Okay, so do you guys see a relationship between authors and books at a concept level? So authors, if I am creating a table for authors, I'm going to have first name, last name of authors, and we'll put an ID also. Okay, so I'll have author ID, um, first name, last name. Okay. What about books? Books will start with an ID. Okay, so every table has to have a primary key, so we'll start with an ID for books. Okay, we'll call it books ID. What else? Title. Okay, what else does books need? Author. You guys see it? Can a book exist without an author? No, right? So we need a author information. ID, let's say title, some kind of author. Okay, but author on its own can kind of exist. Okay, first name, last name, ID, it's fine. But books need to have some relationship, some information about authors. Okay, so you guys see the relationship. So a books, an author table can exist. Basically, what we see at a concept level is it can exist on its own that I can keep inserting data without worrying about books. But the books table need to have some information about the author. It cannot exist without an author. Okay. In this case, we are going to insert some data where we want to put some author information for some other use cases. But that's how the concept is. Okay. So when you are developing a database application, when you are doing your projects, your homework, this kind of concept you need to come up with. Okay. When you have different tables, you need to find out what is the relationship between the tables and what table requires information. Okay, the authors table does not require any information from the books, but the books table, in order to exist, requires author information. Okay, so far so good. All right, so let's go ahead and create these two tables with the information that we have. All right, so authors, let's go ahead and create, and I already have this SQL, so I'm going to paste this and see if you guys understand. So authors, I am calling it authors ID. It's an integer auto increment, cannot be null. First name, last name, varchar 100, and then I'm setting the primary key as authors ID, not ID. So authors underscore ID. Oops. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Successful. Oh, okay, so there's my authors table. Um, mm, let's see. Let me go ahead and create a books table now. Okay, so books table has books ID, all right, auto increment primary key, a title, and let's set books ID. Okay, at this point, it does not have any information about author, all right? So we need to insert a column that kind of corresponds to this author's table. What you are going to do is, in order to create this kind of relationship, we borrow the ID from the table, from this table, and kind of put it in this table. That's how you create the relationship. Now we know from the concept wise that books need some author information, but how do we tell the database? Usually what happens is you're going to take the primary key from the table this table is dependent on and kind of put it over here. Okay? What do I mean by that? You're just going to create a new column called author's ID. Let me just say author ID, and it's going to be integer. Okay? Again, if you look at it from the database perspective, we have kind of created this relation. When we look at it, we see, okay, this means if I have an author ID, where is this coming from? It's coming from somewhere from a table which is called author, and it has an ID. So I'm going to whatever author ID is over here, I'm going to assign, when I'm inserting rows over here, I'm going to put the same author ID to this book. Okay, this is how you create a relationship between two tables. You kind of pass around the primary keys and create a relationship. Now, if you see the primary key over here is called author's ID, it's called author ID, it does not matter. Okay, you can make it anything you want. The only thing is the intention is that this ID is going to come from this table. Okay, now in this example we will have to manually insert. For example, if I create an author, it will be created with an author ID of 1, and I create another author, it will be created with an author ID of 2. Now if I want to insert a book that belongs to the author whose ID is 1, I will have to kind of manually say insert into books values blah blah blah, author ID is equal to 1 or 2. Okay, for our example this is okay, but in MySQL you can actually enforce this. Okay, there are some more complex queries you kind of kind of force that anything that is over here kind of carries it over here. Okay, we can do that, but for now what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand what is this concept, how do we create a relationship between two tables. Okay, so that's why what we did, we are borrowing this ID over here. Okay, this is how you created a relationship. Now every book is going to have an author ID, and then using this author ID you can go back over here and then look up what's the first name and the last name of that author. Okay, now how do I look up the first name and the last name of an author? I could say select star from authors, where author's ID is equal to 2. It's going to give me the first name and the last name for that author. Okay, I'll write those queries in a bit, but that's how it is working. Okay, now from technical wording perspective, this is called a foreign key. Okay, what does it tells you? That this key is coming from a different table, right? This is the primary key. Books ID is the primary key. Author's ID in this case is called a foreign key. Okay, so when you're reading the documentation, you will come across some words saying foreign key constraints or foreign key. This basically means that you are importing a key that actually belongs to some other table. This author ID does not belong to books table, right? It is actually coming from this table. So that's why we call this as a foreign key. Okay? All right, any questions? Confused? Okay. Yes.
So why don't the title have to be the same? Why does it have to be authors? They're two completely different IDs.
No, they're exactly the same. But the column name over here, what I'm trying to say, you can keep it anything you want. It doesn't matter. It's your intention that you are saying that this thing is going to be over here. That's what you're saying. You can have the same name, you cannot have the same name. And the reason is, in this case, we are not using any complex query. There are ways that you have to have the exact same name. And you can specify in your SQL query saying that this is actually a foreign key. There's a word called foreign key, right? But I don't want to go over there. I just want to do the concept. So if that makes sense, we can just say author's ID. Okay, but the intention over here is, since there's no foreign key syntax that we're using or foreign key constraint, you can put anything over here if you want it and it will still work. But we are not going to put anything. We are going to put the IDs that already exist over here. Okay, but for now with this schema, you can keep anything, any name over here. It doesn't matter. Okay, maybe that's more confused. So I'll keep the same name. The intention over here is that I'm trying to create a relationship between books and authors, and the relationship is based on this ID. Okay, and the ID that comes from any other table is called a foreign key. So this is my primary key, and this is my foreign key. Okay, because it's coming from some other table. Yes.
How does it know which one is the foreign key?
Yeah, it doesn't know. In this syntax, that's what I was saying. There are ways we can do it in MySQL, but we'll look at it later or not. But the concept is that this is a foreign key. Yes. For now, it's just a concept. From this syntax, yes, there's no way to tell MySQL that this is a foreign key. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and create this table. And I have these two tables created. Okay, let's write the read query just to make sure there's no rows. Select star from books, and then select star from authors. Okay, should be empty. All right, but I have the column names over here: books ID, authors ID, title. And let's go back here. Should be empty. Author's ID, first name, last name. Okay. So let's go ahead and insert some rows in this. So let's go ahead and do authors first. So I already have some values. I'm just going to paste it over here and make sure you guys see it. Okay. So same statements. Insert into authors, first name, last name, and then the author name. Okay, I'm not using the ID. Why? It is auto incremented, so it should automatically increment for me. So I'm going to select these, and then run this. So all four were successful. Let's go back to our authors, run this, and then I have 4 rows over here. Okay, so I have IDs, first name, last name. So now I'm going to insert data into my books table using the IDs that are over here. Okay, so all the books that this author has written are going to go with that ID. All the books that are written by this author are going to go with this ID, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me close this. All right, any questions so far? Inserting data. We haven't even gotten to the hard part yet. What is it? Sounds what? I'm just preparing you so that you guys concentrate harder. All right, so now I'm inserting title, and let's call it author's ID. I said it, author's ID. Okay. So books require 2 columns, title and author's ID. I don't have to insert the books ID. Why? Because it's auto-generated. So it's going to have ID number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. These are the book titles, and then next to them are the authors who wrote this book. So let's make sure. 1, Emma, is by Jane Austen. Yep. Next 2 books should be Mark Twain. Okay. And then I don't have any books for these 2 authors. All right. but I do have a book title which there's no author ID. Okay, I can do a null. Why? Because I don't have anything constraining. If you go back up, I did not create a column called author's ID saying it should be not null. So I can put null over here, right? Okay, any questions before I insert these 5 titles? Everybody understand the data set? Okay. So let's go ahead and insert these rows. Okay, that's better. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, successful. Let's go back up and make sure our books are good. Okay. Books ID is auto-generated. Then I have author's ID, multiple, because this book has been written by the same author. The first 2 books. Second, this one is written by the author with an ID 3. Oh, they did have an ID. Guess I didn't see. Oh, okay. Okay, and the last book has an author ID of null because there's no author ID that exists that the person who wrote Dracula. Okay, Bram Stoker. So there's no entry for Bram Stoker. That's why it doesn't show up over here. Okay, quite possible database that I don't have the author's information. Okay, good. All right. So the next steps are how are we going to get all this information in one table, like in one visualization over here. So I have my books information. I'm trying to find who wrote that book. Okay. So from the user perspective, if you do a select star from books, you will get this data set, right? And then you send it back to a user, say, hey, the person who wrote Pride and Prejudice is 1. Person who wrote Emma is 1. What is 1? I'm looking for a name. It gives me like numbers over here. Okay, so this is where the combination comes. This ID, this information is in a different table. And how do you find that information? You use this ID and get the first name and the last name from that table and then combine it and then say, oh, these are the books written by this person. Okay, that's what we are trying to do. Now your tables are, it's not really incomplete, but this is how you would actually define your table. You don't copy every single thing. You kind of don't replicate that same information. You pass around IDs. You already have the first name and the last name somewhere, right? It would be redundant if you move this over here as well. Okay, so instead what we do is we pass in IDs, right? One less column to worry about because SQL has relationships and you can get this information using the next queries that I'm going to show you. Okay, so how do I get the first name and the last name for over here? Let's look at the query. The queries are called joins. Basically, you're joining 2 tables. Okay, the keyword is join. J-O-I-N. Okay, so there are 3 different kind of joins that we are going to look at. But all of them, the purpose of these joins are that you have more than one table and you're combining all those tables and getting all the information that you're looking for. Okay. The first join we are going to look at is called inner join. Let's see what this does. So start with simple select. And what am I trying to find? I don't need the IDs. I don't care about the IDs. So I'm going to say select title. Show me the title. Show me first name. Okay. And then also show me the last name. Oops. Okay. From which table? Let's say books. Okay. But books does not have first name and last name, so I need to put in my second table name. And this is how you do it. You will say inner join. Basically, start with books and join this table with authors. Oops. Okay. So this is how you join 2 tables. Basically, you're saying, hey, I want column title, first name, last name from this table and this table. You have to combine both of them and then give me. Again, why? Title does not exist in authors, right? And first name, last name does not exist in books. But when you combine both of these, all three columns exist, right? When you combine all of them, you will have this also, this also, this also. Okay. Now, what then? The next what follows is called condition. You say on. What are you trying to? You have to specify a condition that you're trying to combine these two tables. Okay. So the condition is the IDs. Let's say books dot author, was it authors dot ID is equal to authors dot authors underscore ID. Let me go through this. Let me put this in a new one. Okay. So what does the last statement say? Let's review. So get me title, first name, last name from this table. Join it with this table, right? What is the condition? What is the condition of joining these two tables? Combine these two tables where the author's ID column matches the author's ID column in my author's column or author's table. Okay, so you have to have a condition that you're trying to match. Now, if you go back and do a select, it's my select. So basically, you're saying from my books table, get this ID, okay, and then from my authors table, get this ID, combine them, get the get the data where these two IDs are matching. Okay. Now again, listen to this. So get me all the data where where did it go? Where the IDs this column matches. Okay. Now, before I run this, let's see if we can figure out which one is matching. So what are the IDs, author IDs in the books table? I have 1, 2, and 3. There's no 4. Okay, so only IDs I have is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now in my authors table, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so when the condition says match on author ID, how many rows should I be getting? Am I going to get author ID 1? Yes, because author ID 1 exists in both tables. It exists in books also, right? Here's 1. And it also exists in authors. Here's the ID 1. Okay, what about 2? Does 2 exist in books? It does. Okay, it also exists in authors. Okay, same with 3. The ID 3 exists in books. Okay, and the same ID is in authors. So I should get this information as well. What about ID number 4? So ID 4 exists in authors, but it does not exist in books, right? Author ID, this column, the middle one. It does not exist over. So I'm not going to get any information related to author ID 4. Again, the reason is I'm putting a condition over here when I'm joining two tables. I'm saying only get me those rows where author IDs are existing on this table and also in this table, where they both match. Okay, so if I run this, let's expand this. So now I have combined the two tables. This 2 is coming from authors, this is coming from books, but it is exactly matching and giving me the correct information. Your authors and books are correctly matching, and they are matching correctly because you have the right IDs, and then your condition is correct. You are saying, okay, give me where these 2 exist. Yes. It is what? No, it's not. It's not a new table. It's like something temporary that you will get back. It's not. It does not create a new table. It's something that is already in memory. As soon as you close it, this will go away. Yeah, it only comes up when you run a query. So it is what we say is kind of query. It's not a new. It's not creating a new table. It's creating what we call a data set. It's a temporary data set that has been created, and you are going to get all this information, but it does not exist physically like these tables over here. It does not exist anywhere. It's just a data set that exists in memory. As soon as you close it, it goes away. Okay, and it comes back when you run that query. Okay, questions? This is only one of three. I still have two more to go. But those are all joins. But this is a more important one, and this is more widely used. Again, why? Because most of the time you're trying to look for information that is common in both tables, right? I'm not interested about the author, about the book that does not have an author, right? It's going to give me a null information. I'm not sure what am I going to do with first name null, last name null. The Dracula one, right? So most of the time you are using inner joins. Inner joins, the property of inner join is that it combines data based on common values. Okay, as long as there are common values between two tables, is only going to give you those rows. All right, it did not give me any information about Dracula. Okay, so it always gives you information that is common in both tables, and usually most of the time that's what you're looking for. Okay, now there are two more joins, left join and right join. Now this information, as I said, inner join is going to give you common information that exists in this table and the information that also exists in this table. So inner join, just remember, is going to give you information that exists in both tables. Okay? The next one is called left join. If you had to take a guess. Now remember, inner join gives you information that exists in this table and this table. What about left join? Left join is going to give you all the information that exists in the table that is left, which is books. Okay, left of this. Okay, so it's going to give you all the rows that exist in this table, and it's only going to give you information that kind of matches this condition in this table. Okay, again, so inner join gives you information that exists in both tables. If one of the tables is missing information, it's not going to bring it up, right? When we do inner join, that's what happens. Left join, that's kind of similar, but what it does is it will give you all the information that exists in this one, the left of it, whether it exists in this or not. It doesn't matter. It's always going to give you that. So if I run this exact same thing, you will see Dracula comes up. Why? Because this information exists in this table, but there is no corresponding authors. That's why you will see nulls over here. So left join will give you all the information from your this table. Okay. Now, if I want all the information from authors, but I don't, which does not exist in books, it's called right join. So right join does is this time it's going to switch and it's going to give you all the information from this table, whether it exists in books or not. So if I run this, I'm getting a null because Andre Asselin doesn't have any books in this one. So that's why you will see a null title. But I don't see Dracula. Why? Because I'm saying, hey, I don't care if this information does not exist, don't worry about that. But I want all the information over here in this table. Okay, let's do this one more time. So inner join is going to give me information that exists in both tables. Any information that is missing from any table, it doesn't show up. For example, Dracula, it doesn't show up over here. Okay, because Dracula does not, the author does not exist in this table. Okay, this condition is important. You need to put the on condition, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, this is the condition that is considering which information exists in which case. Okay, now left join is going to bring me all the rows from my left table, which is books. Okay, whether it exists or not in my author. So if I run this, you will see Dracula come up. Why? Because this information exists in the books table, but there's no author associated with it, so it just gives you null. Okay, now if I want all the information from my authors, I say right join, and then I'm getting an author that does not have a book, so that's why it just shows null. Okay, so inner join, left join, right join. Okay, now left join can be switched around. You can make this authors and books. It doesn't matter. The only thing matters is what is left of this statement. It is authors. This is going to bring from there. Okay, let me go back here. All right, questions? No, there's no way you guys understood that so fast. No, it took me ages to understand joins. Maybe I'm just slow. Yes.
Okay, so when you just switch them around, that wouldn't change what you got back.
Yeah, it won. Right. Why? Because if I do authors and I do books, and if I change this to write, then it doesn't change because now I'm just saying, give me all the information from over here.
If you switch it around now.
Yes, then it's going to change. It's going to give you, oops. It goes back to our first thing that there's no, give me everything from the authors. Because this left join means give me everything from the authors, whether the books has that information or not. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they're the same. Right. Let me go back here. So the thing is that instead of switching the whole thing, like switching the tables, you pick one and you kind of go with that consistency. Now, if I'm using left join over here and suddenly in my query I kind of change back and I switch around this is more confusing versus keeping this always. You will make less mistakes because you'll cause some issues. So now if I want this, I can just do right and then it switches. But I have my consistency all throughout my code. Again, this is not the only query you're going to write. You're going to write many queries, right? So pick one, be consistent about it. But if you are switching around these, it gets really confusing super fast, right? This is still a very simple query. There are like some really complex queries. Okay? So yeah, left and join, depending on this case, right picks up this one, left picks up this one. Okay, but the concept is same. It's going to give you information, all the rows from one table and not all the rows from the other table. Okay, that's the concept. Inner join gives you information that is common in both tables. Okay, if it does not exist, it kind of ignores that information, never even shows you. Okay, this is more common, the inner join versus those two. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'm not going to give you any separate activity. Just make sure I'm going to keep this, write this table out, make sure kind of create this query, make sure you understand the syntax, just kind of follow along with this one. Okay, what is it? You already created it? So you have authors, books, create this table, and then you're going to use the inner joins. Try all three of them: inner join, right join, left join. Okay, make sure all of them are working. We'll be doing more activities on Tuesday around this. What is it? Tables? No, it has nothing to do with. Not when it comes over here.
Like every time I see a dot,
Oh no. Yeah, it has. Yeah, over here don't say object. No callbacks, no objects. Okay. When it comes to queries, there's no objects. We are going to look into getting this data in our Node.js. That's where objects and everything will come. Over here in this query, there's this SQL. So do you understand the dot though? So since if I don't put dots over here, SQL is going to get confused at which column am I trying to access, right? Because both columns exist in same, so you need to specify the table name and then say which column you're trying to access. Okay, so even over here, this is redundant because this doesn't exist in book, so this will also work. It's kind of redundant because first name only belongs to one table, so SQL can figure it out. Any column that are more common names, that's when you have to mention that. All right, we still have 5 minutes. Please make sure before you leave you are comfortable. You have written. Next class we are going to work with Node.js. We are going to look at some Node.js packages which interact with SQL, and we are going to bring this data into our backend. We are going to bring this data into our Node.js app. Okay, so it's going to get pretty complicated really soon. That seems sarcastic here.